I had an idea behind why I wanted to come to you with name and place and what it could do for me. Okay, because from my background as a detective, I organise things. I'm quite organisational.
Yeah.
What's the benefits of your program in me organising? What's the benefit? Why do I need to organise it? What benefit is it to me?
Yeah, organising is so important, of course, in our research. And as you rightly said, from your detective background, cases would not get solved, or criminals taken to trial if there wasn't good organisation behind that. Same actually applies totally with historical research, because it's a tidy mind. It's that whole concept of keeping everything organised together. There is no one way that we collect all this information, because they're coming from such diverse sources. There could be old documents which could be quite structured, like say a census, or it could be very unstructured, like a newspaper article or a will.
Yeah.
Precisely. And it's so important for us to be able to glean all of the factual information out of there without losing any of it. And the only way you're going to do that is to have it in an organised form. Yeah. So one of the key tenets behind name and place is the ability to be able to organise everything from that source in there, collect all the names and places, but as importantly, all the facts and events, the tiny little things like a relationship to someone that's not familial. Like, for example, a will may say, I bequeath the barn at the end of my field to my neighbour John. That could easily get lost, but John could actually be quite a key part of the story, or even the infamous barn at the end of the field could be part of the story.
Or what you mentioned earlier, the lodger on a census. Yes, or a visitor.
Exactly, the throwaway pieces of information that are so key, but by having that complete organisation means it's all there. And it's also important to me that it allows people to unclutter their brains with the research, so that everything's organised, it's all in a good form. And I'm always full of the visuals of this, and I always sort of think about these are like building blocks or like Lego bricks. So if you've got all this organised data together, then it allows you to do something with it. And where all of this gets exciting, as I'm sure you'll agree, is when we start to look at the analytics of it. Let's build this up a bit. Like, where did these people come from, or what was the profile of these people? Or with a place, how did that place evolve over time? Did industry come and go, or did transport change?
The database system is only as good as the information you put in it. The information you get out is what you put in, isn't it?
Exactly.
If you put little information in, you can extract quite a small amount of information back out, isn't it? But you start putting loads more information in, like you said, the social behind it, the weather forecasts or anything else you want to put in there, then you can extrapolate that information back out to build up a bigger picture, can't you?
Yeah. I always talk about stories through data, or sort of like taking a journey, and that's how I think you feel the same about this isn't a flat thing. It's a very three-dimensional world that we inhabit with our research, and being able to navigate through there and actually sort of like try and uncover sort of answers to things. One of the things I think is exciting, that if you organise all this right, and it actually can open doors. So like, for example, you could see with a place that perhaps there was like a high infant mortality rate for a short period of time. Now, why? If you didn't have that data collated with the children's births and deaths, you would easily miss that. But then it could open a door as to why. Perhaps there was a cholera outbreak, for example, and or things, or in the context of the War Memorial, were they predominantly agricultural, the soldiers who died, or the ones who survived? What was their social class, their background? And by being able to record all of that data in a structured way, it opens the door then to doing the fun stuff,
because
the analytics.
You look at the marriage certificate and it comes up as, say, he's a butcher. Yes. Or you'll then go to, you might look at the map of 1914, 1915, and a lot of the maps, the older maps, if you do scale down to it, will identify some of the trades in the village. There's a butcher there. Well, there's only one named. That's probably where they were. The trade directories. You can actually get the trade directory and input those details of all the trades in that village into your database.
Yes, you can. I mean, and that's one of the things I've done which is different to family tree software, where quite often the occupation is purely just text.
Yeah.
I actually make it intelligent field, because what that means is you can actually start to do industry analysis. And one of the most popular graphs that you can produce live out of your name and place database is the industry split, or the occupational split of your project. So at a glance you can actually see, well, 15% say were in trade, or 42% were in agriculture, and so on.
So going on from that, then the information I've put in, and if I want to have a look at that information, how do you visualize that for me? How do I see that information?
Well, you have a range of different charts, so a pie chart or a bar graph. I mean, because obviously there will be different types of graphs that will work better for that. But I mean, in that sort of, that occupational split, a pie chart is a wonderful way of viewing it, because at a glance you can see, like, for example, all of the people in your project involved in agriculture. And better still, you can drill down. So you can click on that, and then it will break it down into who are the agricultural labourers versus the actual farming, the gentry class, or people in the ancillary world. In the trade world, for example, you can see how many were tailors, or how many were butchers or bakers, and that sort of level of information then allows you to start really sort of uncovering other stories that you perhaps would ordinarily have missed.
Going back to the basics, so I've now recorded all my births, marriages and deaths with the district number, and I've said, well, okay, I'm going to look at this village, so I've gone to the parish church, and some of these records are online, so baptisms and marriages and burials. So I've recorded all those in there. How would I visualise that? Can I break it down into male and female? Can I break it down to, okay, I'm looking at burials. Can I break that down to age groups when they were buried?
Yes,
exactly. Can I do that?
Exactly, because any of that information you could put in, which say comes back to how important it is to organise this and get all that information in. If you've got the ages of people, or their gender, or their social class, you can then, that gives you those building blocks to be able to split those things. So yes, you want to say how many people were male and female who died in a certain period of time, or what was the age range of the people who died, or what was the average age of the people who married.
So I can see if there's a spike in burials.
Exactly.
And then in my mind that would be, what's happened then?
Yeah, it takes you down a new path of research, gives you something else to go.
Something happened then? Was there a cholera outbreak? Was there something happened then? And that then do I go back to newspapers? Do I find other information?
Yes,
that can
it takes you down somewhere else that perhaps you could have missed. And in just the same way with place, we geocode every place which is in your project. So what that means is it's effectively like a pin in a map. So more than a postcode, because obviously a postcode is great if there's still a modern location for there, but it might be that barn at the end of the field that could have been, destroyed 100 years ago or something. But the fact is you can go to a map and put a pin in a map where you believe this place will be.
You can go right down to a very, very small area. Exactly. So for instance, if I look at a birth certificate, it normally comes up with a registration district of, say, Holborn in London. However, when I start looking at marriages and buy all these different marriages and then look at them, it might be St Andrew Holborn, it could be St Leonard's, Shoreditch, it could be St James's Clerkenwell. They all come under the registration district of Holborn, but there are different areas because there are a lot of parishes within London.
And you can give each one of those places a pinpoint on a map, and what that enables you to do is then start to look at clusters about, for example, if you've pinned where people were living, how far away they were from the church.
That was my next question, with births, addresses and marriage addresses, that sort of thing.
Exactly, and then it opens up a whole new world, because then you're into population migration. And coming back to the name studies, as we both understand, it does, the name study may come from one original geographic location, or there could be various hotspots around the country or beyond the country.
For Brabs, I know Brabs is a Yorkshire name, because I know the clusters up there. I've not delved down into that yet. I'm just looking at the London, because my Emma Brabs married in London. Her father came from a small village outside York in Yorkshire. So I've looked at the London one. So I've taken the birth, marriage and death from London, and I've started from that, and then I'm going to grow it. I'll go back to the father and go back to Yorkshire. Because it's quite a popular name in the small area, the families are all different. So that's why I can still record them, but I don't have to link them, do I?
No,
they can be,
just get them into the database.
This person could just be a standalone person, that name, and I don't know where they fit within the family cluster, if there is a fit.
Yes.
He could just sit there as an outsider, but he's in my database.
Yeah.
So if ever anything comes up in the future, and that name recalled somewhere, or an occupation, that person is not forgotten. It's always there,
place,
isn't it?
because if you're able to record where that person is, and that place is in there as well, and it's geocoded, so it's got a place in a map. If some further research comes up and it is people with the same name or the same place who are in that area, you start to got some context, because that might actually unlock your thinking into actually how that original person could be related to one of these new people. So it's another way where it's structuring and organising the data, which is so key that we were able to record
making you
every
actually
place.
Examine the data in there, isn't it? It's
exactly.
saying to you, something's flagged up. You really need to look at, John, you need to look at this.
Yes.
There's something there that, it's not quite right, but you need to look at it, rather than just leave it and just say it's forgotten about.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Cheers, Paul.